but several people asking me about currencies. Do you see it possible to get to a point where, I mean, the euro decline, that kind of thing? We've never had a currency last anyways, historically. Do you get to a point where a world currency shows up? It's not going to be, as you said, not going to be Bitcoin or stuff like that, but do you see them in the aftermath of this coming up with a global currency?
There is a proposal by the IMF to turn the SDR into the reserve currency per se. I'm kind of against it because the IMF is, to me, a very questionable organization. It has been bribed before. As I was mentioning, if there's any government involvement in anything, that you offer somebody twice their salary and they give up everything in the church. I don't really know if, I mean, that is a proposal on the table. The U.S. does not want the dollar to be the reserve currency. And that has come to a head mainly because of the whole issue with the ECB lowering interest rates. And Janet Yellen was, actually yelling at Draghi and saying, listen, this is crazy. You can't do this. Because she understood and saw what was happening with the pension funds, et cetera. And she kept coming out saying, we have to normalize interest rates, which was basically the code word for raising it. And she understood that they were creating this problem here. And Draghi would not back off. And now he's completely trapped, completely. So, I mean, it's difficult. The Fed was being lobbied by the IMF, ECB, and everybody else. You don't raise interest rates because you're going to hurt us. So that made it more or less come home that, hey, this isn't very good for reserve currency status, that we should be managing the economy based upon domestic considerations. So there's definitely a move towards to try to end the dollar reserve currency. Then they want to be able to raise interest rates or lower interest rates without being lobbied by everybody else in the world. They raise interest rates, and then what happens? The U.S. gets blamed for taking down emerging markets. It's the Americans that call it. So it's very convoluted, and so how do you resolve that? It is to create some sort of international currency. I believe every country is still going to have to retain their own. I do not see this as a one world single currency that everybody's going to use to go shopping internationally. That couldn't possibly last for long. And besides that, you then have a situation of then every country is going to have its budget. You just see the EU, yelling at Italy, oh, your budget. You would end up in the same thing. So I don't see this one world government where everybody surrenders their sovereignty to some entity in the place. The only way something like that would happen is if you're talking about war, in dictatorship or something. But to voluntarily say, okay, fine, yes, you're right, we're going to hand over our power, I don't see that as plausible. Not under the current situation. It would have to take a war to get to that.
Well, one of the other things